Welcome to Racing News and a show that focuses on our jockeys. We chat to champion KZN apprentices Ashton Aries and Eric Ngwani to find out what we can expect from them in going forward. But first, we take an in-depth look at the possible reasons behind the number of race day incidences involving our jockeys. We've seen a spate of injuries and falls amongst our jockeys this year. While it might not seem unusual when looking at the injury rates in other horse racing countries, it's nevertheless a reminder that professional racing is a high-risk sport. Most thoroughbreds weigh between 450 and 550 kilograms and are capable of reaching speeds of around 65 kilometers per hour. Take into consideration that a jockey does not sit on a horse, but rather grips the horse with his knees, ankles and thighs. He leans forward over the horse's wither with his back parallel to that of the horse. It can be a precarious position even at the best of times, with both balance and control being critical. Because of this seating position, if a horse changes pace or direction suddenly, a jockey is often propelled forward over its neck onto the track or into the rail, and sometimes, unfortunately, into the path of other horses. It's not surprising then that the jockey's position on a horse and the speed with which the horse is moving predisposes the jockey to risk of injury. Horses can propel a jockey onto the ground from a saddle height of about 2 meters. But in the case of head injuries, a generally accepted height of 3 meters is often used, as being the distance between the rider's head and the ground. Despite wearing protective helmets, as many as 1 in 5 injuries suffered are to a jockey's head or neck, and these generally result from being thrown from a horse. Interestingly, approximately 35% of all injuries take place either entering, within, or leaving the starting gates. Soft tissue injuries are the most common, with the knee as the pivotal joint being particularly vulnerable. The most common serious injuries are fractures, mainly to the upper body and clavicle or collarbone. Jockeys do wear body protectors, but these are essentially worn to protect the trunk or core from soft tissue or rib fractures. They are not spinal or clavicle protectors as initially thought. So what could be the reason, if there are any, for the spate of injuries?
These things sort of go in cycles, and I think it's a trend you'll find worldwide. When we look at the reasons, I mean, racing by nature is a dangerous sport. If you've got these thoroughbreds travelling at high speed, close proximity to each other, any small movement can become, impact on the safety of horse and riders in races, which is why we have the interference rules. While the riders who cause interference in races are dealt with.
We have had a few falls lately, but I think we've been lucky in recent years. Falls happen all the time, it's just one of those things. It's, as we say to the kids here at the academy, it's not if you fall, it's when you fall. They've got to be prepared all the time. If you lose concentration for 1 second, that's what happens. If you get too close to heels, sometimes you get away with it, and other times you fall. And sometimes you walk away from it, like Jared the other night. He was lucky. He walked away and he rode the next race and he was okay. And other times you have silly little falls and you break bones.
But what's alarming, and when we look at it, of the latest spat that you're talking about, or spate should we say, it's a variety of different ways in which his riders are being injured. We've had a horse walking out of the parade ring and dropping a rider, Anton Marcus breaking his wrist, just walking out of the parade ring. We've had 1 or 2 riders being injured on the way to the start, where horses have gone into the rails and tipped them over the rails going to the start. We've had equipment failure, where stirrup leathers have broken in a race. And riders being injured in the starting stalls. We've had obviously the odd 1 or 2 occasions where a horse may have gone wrong in a race.
It's not like us, we can sort of feel something's wrong with us and we take time off. They can't tell you that there's something wrong. There could be a little niggle there and they just step wrong and things happen, bad things happen. Like in Lyle and Stewie's case, it was just a terrible fall and they were both lucky to walk away from it unscathed.
Michelle, I think it's important to realise that we're dealing with a 450 kg horse here that's galloping at carrying a lot of momentum and force behind it. So the minute, from a veterinary perspective, when something goes wrong, when there's a failure of the suspensory apparatus, a fracture of a bone, there's very little get out for the horse. The jockeys do their best to pull the horse up and out the race as quickly as possible, whilst saving the other jockeys around them. But unfortunately, on several occasions, the momentum and force combined with a completely failed leg, whether it be a suspensory or a bone, will invariably lead to a tumble and a fall. And that's when we start to see the events that we've seen recently at the races. It's unfortunate, and we try our best to avoid it by trotting horses up prior to going to the races. We would never send one that's not right to the races.
And veterinary monitoring and control doesn't just end there, with 2 vets on duty on any race day.
We're usually here hour and a half before races. If there's no incidences or transport injuries, we will obviously go and attend to those horses immediately. Otherwise, we'll go back into the boardroom and then we'll do our cart call like we usually do. Once that is done, we'll come into the parade ring. We'll look at the horses, obviously parade. If there's a problem or a horse injured itself while parading or injured itself while saddling, we'll have a look at those horses. We are usually 2 vets, so once the horses leave the parade ring, I will follow the horses to go see them canter down. The other vet stays in the parade ring in case something happens. And then once I'm there, we'll obviously then watch them canter past. Any short horses that we see, we'll obviously then trot out. If we're short for time, we will trot those horses out on our way to the start. We'll ask the jockey just to trot a horse or get into a... So usually we see lameness is obviously much better when a horse is trotting than when they canter. But if they canter short, we look at them. We also then look at them at the start. That's usually when most of our incidents happen. And usually we'll give the horse the benefit of the doubt, obviously for the horse's welfare. So we'll scratch those, but it's never an easy, quick thing because you have to make a quick decision. At the start, we participate quite a lot and make sure that the horses get a good experience when they do jump. We do follow them obviously once they've jumped. If it's a catastrophic breakdown, unfortunately we have to then euthanize the horse. If it's just a breakdown, we will stabilize the horse, give it pain medication, and then refer it to the closest vet hospital as soon as possible. We've got a horse ambulance, which then is just dedicated to that, so the horses then go straight to the referral vets. The stabs will then call in if there are any reports from the jockeys. So we will then have a look at those sort of reports, not striding out, and then also horses with poor performance that just didn't run up to their standard. Lame horses we always treat. We will never send a lame horse back to the yard. But if it's a niggle, like a 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, we will discuss it with the trainer. But some trainers do come and look at the horse if the horse has had a bad run, which we do appreciate from those trainers. You're dealing with jockeys' safety and horses' welfare and safety. So at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. It's the safety of the horses and the riders.
So what other issues are there?
There's different factors. It's not the tracks. There's nothing wrong with the tracks. The tracks are good.
What about the jockeys?
I think the jockeys are changing their style of riding. In the old days, we were taught to ride with full foot in the iron. So obviously when a horse picks in a race or something, your whole foot's in the iron and you've got less chance of your foot coming out the iron. Yes. Now with the new irons and new developments they're riding, they only ride with their toes in the irons. So they get more chance of their foot slipping out of the iron and actually losing their balance and falling off the horse.
What is the reason, though, to have less of your foot in the iron?
I just feel that jockeys today feel that's a new way, a new style of riding, and they feel that they might be stronger or can ride harder that way. They don't feel like sat on top of the horse. They feel like they're light on the horse, much lighter.
And does racing on different surfaces change the nature of how races are ridden?
And also racing has changed with polytrack racing now. It's a lot faster and a lot tighter racing than we used to have.
What about the number of race meetings that take place today?
I feel that racing is a lot more racing than we ever had before. In the past we used to only race in 3 different provinces all on the same day. Now we race every single day of the week. There's racing in South Africa. So obviously our accident rate will be a lot greater.
So to try and say it's one particular thing that causes it. It's very, very difficult to say. Obviously, it's concerning. No one likes to see any horse or rider getting hurt for whatever reason on a race day. And as I said, going in cycles, we hope we're at the end of ours.
For most people, an extreme sport is fueled by adrenaline and practiced by risk junkies looking for the ultimate rush. They are also those activities which are perceived as having a high level of inherent danger or risk of harm if the skill is performed poorly. Extreme sports are generally more solitary than traditional sports and practiced without the guidance of a coach on the sidelines. Some define extreme sports as solo activities requiring highly specialized equipment. Dr. Rhonda Cohen, London sports psychologist for extreme sports, has it as a competitive activity within which the participant is subjected to natural or unusual physical and mental challenges, such as speed and height, and where fast and accurate cognitive perceptual processing may be required for a successful outcome. So where does this thinking leave us? That racing is an extreme sport? It may be a surprise to some, but possibly not to others.
You know, there's not too many sports out there that ambulance follows you around the track, so that just shows how extreme it is.
It is an extreme sport, and it's a high-risk sport, and it's a sport that accidents would occur because it's so tense.
Although racing has become significantly safer in the past 50 years, an Australian study found that falls and injuries in jockeys are common, with about 1 fall for every 240 race rides, and 1/3 of those falls resulting in substantive injury.
I don't think our numbers are no different to anywhere around the world. This is, as you say, an extreme sport.
I think we're reasonably lucky. If you look at other countries like Australia and New Zealand, and they have a lot more falls than we do.
We take the safety of horse and riders very, very seriously, and that's our job. We work close with the veterinary surgeons, we work closely in discussing issues with the riders on a race day basis, and try to make sure that we can keep these horses and the riders as safe as we can.
KZN Apprentice of the Year Ashton Aries has made a name for himself as a talented, natural, lightweight rider. All this in spite of never having sat on a horse before, enrolling at the South African Jockey Academy. Ashton is a man of few words, but there's a quiet steel about him, probably the result of a tough childhood in the impoverished Western Cape community of Atlantis. He's not intimidated by his seniors and also not shy to ride his own races. What do you attribute your success to so far?
I mean, it's a lot of skill, it's people look for very good, talented riders, and, I think people have told me I'm one of the nice, talented riders. You need to put a lot of effort in, put your mind to it, think about it, you need to sit down with a computer form, read your races, read your form, study the jockeys next to you in order to beat them.
Have there been any jockeys who you have aspired to become like?
Yeah, I've looked at Mr. Marcus. Mr. Marcus is very thinkative in a race. He uses his brain quite nicely. He's skillful. He knows exactly when to move, when to slow down in a race, and that's all the tactics I've tried to learn.
Is it also a career where you never stop learning?
Most definitely, yes. One of those, you never stop learning. You learn every day, even riding track, riding at races at Greyville, Scottsville, wherever, all over the country, you learn every day.
And what do you do in your spare time?
My spare time, I will be obviously studying form, but obviously then after studying form, if I think I know enough, I will go onto my phone and phone my parents and just tell them how it's going this side and how they did it that side. It's just nice to be having a better communication.
What makes Ashton Aries happy?
My job, obviously. Riding horses, waking up to work with horses every morning, obviously going to races. Just being around horses is lovely.
If you had any advice for a young person coming to the Jockey Academy to start as a first year, What would you say to that person?
I would say to that person, I know it's going to be tough here at the academy as being a first year. As being a first year, obviously you've got a lot of duties on your shoulders, but I would say to that person, he must just put his head down, work through those tough times. The year after that, it will be getting a bit easier, and then he must pull up his socks when he comes to work.
And the best part is riding winners.
Riding winners, yeah.
What are your goals between now and the end of the year?
Between now and the end of the year, obviously just trying to get to the most winners I could have. Obviously I've lost my claim, so that's one goal down. Obviously, yeah, but losing the claim at the moment, it's going through a bit of a tough time, and I'm just hoping for all the best.
And next year, 2019, what can we expect from Ashton Aries?
I think next year I will be doing a bit of traveling, obviously done with school. And then I will be just trying to ride as many winners as I can coming out of my time at the end of the year.
Ashton is a rising star in the apprentice ranks.
Our KZN champion apprentice for 2018 is Ashton Aries.
His seemingly emotionless demure belies a good head on his shoulders, but probably more importantly, his good pair of hands and an all-important affinity with the horses he rides makes him a young man for the future. From one champion apprentice to another, this time Eric Ngwani, who won the championship in 2017. Eric completed his grade 12 at Wentworth in Durban prior to joining the South African Jockey Academy in 2014.
And the champion KZN Apprentice of the Year.
What do you attribute your success to, Eric?
Well, I'd say my focus. I've focused more on horses and my riding more, and I've been focused from the word go, and I think that's kept me going. And
what do you think trainers look for in an apprentice when they choose an apprentice to race ride for them?
well, the look if you are not scared of horses, and how confident you are with them, and the most important thing is that you be with the horse. And I think from the word go, I've been trying to, like, when I ride a race, to be with the horse, and it just gives me more focus and more understanding, and it's just did me well.
When you say be with the horse, what do you mean by that?
Like having hands, softer hands, and understanding different horses, and it helps to get to know the horses that you are riding. And I think me in understanding horses, it just came naturally, and from the word go, it's just been very well for me.
It was given a very good ride from Eric Ngwani, coming from draw 8 out of 8.
I've been fortunate to work with a lot of top jocks, and I think that's helped me a lot as well with my confidence.
Have they been quite generous in their knowledge and understanding of the sport and sharing it with you guys?
Yes, well, Mr. Marcus, every time he rode a horse, and if I'm on it, he'll call me and tell me how to ride the horse. And when I was still claiming, if a horse needed a claim, he'd put my name first, and I got a lot of winners because of him, and I'm very grateful to him. Yeah.
And Gunner's going on today, and it's Gunner now, and Gunner's going to win it. Gunner will win.
Louis, Eric work rides for you, and you have worked with him over the years. What's your assessment of him as a young apprentice?
Well, he's very bright. He's one of my favourites of all the jocks here. His nature and the professional manner in which he deals with trainers is very important, and just respect he's got. And then what a brain. I'll say to him, a horse that he's never even worked, I'll say to him, the one horse of mine 2 weeks ago ran second, and I said, no, he'll know the race, he'll know who won it, who ran third, who rode my horse, who rode the winner. He's an absolute form student. He knows his form. If you need to know something, form, you don't have to find a professional, just find Eric, he'll tell you, out of his head.
When you look at apprentices to work and ride your horses, what are those characteristics or traits that you do look for in them?
Oh, well, a good seat and good hands, and then also good feedback. And Eric's got all of those, and it's just a pity he's lost his claim. It's difficult for him with the 4 claimers around, but I can tell you he can hold his own. And what I look for is just the guy who can look after a horse. And there are 1 or 2 of my fillies that can be a little bit tough in the pens. When Eric's ridden them, they just calm with him. And I think the horse feels that from the jockey. I've learned that over many years through Pierre Straight, and they sense and they feel the rider. I think that way is very good.
What are your goals for the rest of this year?
Well, the academy allowed me to leave the academy early if I get to 100 winners, which I'm 8 more off that, and that's my short-term goal. I'm just trying to get to 100, and with the support from the trainers, I think I'll get there before the end of the year.
Well, we all look forward to that. And then next year in 2019, what can we hopefully expect from you, Eric?
Well, to start off, I'll start off in Durban. Well, I did well in Durban. I'll just kick off my career here and see how I go about. And obviously, I'd want to spread my wings and go abroad and start to travel a bit and see where it takes me.
Why do you love the sport so much?
Well, I can't say more. I just love the horse, and it's just the adrenaline, and yeah, I like the speed, and I like the challenge of it, and and I'm very competitive, so I just give it a go every time I get the opportunity.
Well, that sounds like a winning formula.
Thank you very much, man.
That brings the show to a close. Be sure to catch all replays on www.goldcircle.co.za and click on the YouTube icon, or follow us on Facebook at Racing News TV Show. We'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time on Sunday, the 14th of October. Until then, we wish you all happy and profitable racing. The Racing News Show and previous screenings are available online at www.goldcircle.co.za. Click on the YouTube icon, go to playlists and click on Racing News to access all shows to date.